Because you gotta somehow make that paper, right?
Right.
Show me the money!
You come to the right place for that. Because it's time for Bo Bounds
Show me the money!
to show you the...
Good morning. Welcome in. It's pandemonium in New Orleans last night and this morning. You know, the mimosas and Bloody Marys are flowing at Merrill and Paladar 511 and, oh gosh, Pesh, among other fantastic restaurants and bars. The Roosevelt, Ritz-Carlton, JW Marriott bars. Ole Miss fans are partying. They beat the Georgia Bulldogs. They advanced to play the Miami Hurricanes. And Miami, as a 9.5-point underdog, beat Ohio State and ended up dominating in the trenches, man. Congratulations to Cristobal in Miami and our next guest with what a defensive coordinator hire by Miami last January. So we got Ole Miss and Miami on one side and Indiana and Oregon on the other. And Dave Bartoo, Oregon Duck alum, college football matrix, joins us on the show, brought to you by Pearl River Resort and the Golden Moon Casino, Vegas-style sportsbook. Bartoo, congratulations on the Hurricanes.
Oh, that was it was all fun yesterday, right? I mean, it's amazing. I was even wondering last night watching that ball go through the field goal post at the Sugar Bowl, and I figured you'd be lying there going, okay, we recruit in the mid-30s. Indiana recruits in the mid-30s. Indiana just kicked the crap out of the SEC runner-up. Got to make you wonder, right? It feels like I've never seen such a free-for-all in college football right now. I mean, Indiana, there's 120 minutes away from a national title as a mid-30s recruiter. I mean, I wouldn't be 10 years ago. I said you're just out of your mind that somebody with, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Kentucky level recruiting would be there. But here we are. And I think it comes down to focus and being a master motivator of these players. And for some reason, Cignetti hasn't figured out better than everybody else right now.
Damn. All right. Miami.
Yeah.
They're going to play Ole Miss next week in Tempe.
Yeah, they already did their report this morning. Every single thing every snap Ole Miss has done this year is already in the report. Every behavior I could find is already to Miami, just like I did the last two games.
Wow. So tell our listeners what you tweeted last January about the Miami Hurricane defensive coordinator hire. Or two.
Oh, well, Guidry got fired by Cristobal, and he was out looking for a new guy. And Heatherman was on the board, and a lot of people were overlooking Heatherman and never heard of this guy because he was kind of not buried, but he was at Minnesota. And so you look at the Minnesota numbers, and this was a guy that was putting up top 25 defensive scoring efficiency numbers, but they weren't like elite looking. But then you start adjusting for opponent and the offenses that they were playing and the talent Minnesota has. And suddenly it's like, man, this guy's putting up top 10 opponent-adjusted defenses. He's just way down the list in the Big Ten, and he's at Minnesota. Nobody pays attention to Minnesota, right? They've been irrelevant for basically our lifetime. And so it was probably the second most under the radar hire that we had worked on last year. I would say the number one was getting Sheil Woods and Leftwich to Texas Tech. But Heatherman was well, as you said, we tweeted it in January, hugely under the radar. And they've just, they've been doing nothing short but killing it on defense so far.
Yeah. And this has been a long, difficult road for Mario Cristobal because he's arguably the best recruiter or top 3 or 4 in the country. I call him a refined Ed Ogeron, but there's a lot of similarities between the two. They run hot. They're great at recruiting. They're magnetic, all that stuff. But Mario's had some embarrassing losses. They've loaded the boat in high school. They've loaded the boat with portal, as you know. You've been, Mario actually is willing to ask people for help with staffing, which is a big deal. The overwhelming majority of coaches and athletic directors will not do that, as you know. And so Georgia Tech and they had some embarrassing losses on the way. I mean, this has to be super sweet for Mario and Miami that they've gotten through the gauntlet and got to the semifinal games after what's happened the last couple of years, Bartoo.
Oh yeah. Even watching, I'll admit, I actually watched football games yesterday.
Hello.
Right. And even in the post game, when asked questions about expectations and what people say, I thought he was about to go off. I'm like, oh, here it comes. And then he's just like, no, we're just focused on the next game now. But I think this affects a lot of guys across the board. And as a person that loves sport psychology, because it's really hard to put data on that, I do believe you have to lose before you win. I do believe you have to suffer through the hard times to figure out how to overcome them. And so seeing, whether it's Mario or anybody else, seeing head coaches that are quote unquote vilified by fans because they can't get it done. It's great to see them overcome past losses. And I think, you add up all the cumulative stuff that has been said, whether it's Mario or any other head coach, I think it's very, very sweet to be able to go out there and have your team perform and speak basically on your behalf that you've overcome this, at least this year, overcome the hump on the narrative.
Dave Bartoo on the Out of Bounds show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, Matrix Analytical. Look, Dave, we take this for granted, Bartoo, because we've had you on a million times. Will you tell everybody when a general manager, or a head coach, or an athletic director call you and say, Bartoo, we need help with staffing? Explain to our listeners what you do, Bartoo.
Well, it's a lot of different things. Yeah, I can give you some examples though. I mean, even right now. So I got that Ole Miss report done and gone to Miami already this morning. But I'm sitting here working on position coaches for Eckett, New Mexico. Okay. And so, like, working with him, he just texts me names. I like this guy. Hey, somebody said check out this guy, and so I'll get texts. I've gotten the common one from ADs. This will make you laugh, right at the beginning, and this can come in September, it can come in October. ADs are meticulous note takers. If you sit down with them, a bunch of them, most of them have like a notebook in front of them. They do so much, and I will get this is one of my favorite things is I'll get a picture. An AD will take a picture of his notebook and have all the last names on there in a row, right? Everybody he's thinking of, Bo Bounce, Dave Bartoo, blah 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 blah, right down the list, and it'll just be a picture and be like, okay, let's get to work on these guys. And that's how a lot of it starts. It's a list. It's either a typed list or it's a picture of a list. And that's where we begin the search most often is a list of a small list up to the biggest list I got at once was 41 guys. Think about that, 41 guys. I mean, people on Twitter go, oh, man, they interviewed one or two guys. Man, for every one they interview 10 more you never hear about. Mm-hmm. There's a ton of guys that they go through because this is their chance to be connected as well. They may not hire a Bo Bounds, but they might be really interested in talking to him because he's an up-and-coming coach. He may not fit yet, but this is their chance to create that connectivity between the coach and the agent. So a lot of times it's a big list, and our job will be to tier it up, right? Here's your lowest risk, high ceiling guys on top. Right? And then your medium risk, lower floor guys. By the time you get to the bottom, this is the low ceiling, low floor. If we're down here, we need a new list, kind of level, and every once in a while we will get there. We will get to the point where, okay, we tried all the top guys. We can't get them. We don't want to go to the bottom. Then they'll come back and they'll be like, okay, who are guys that maybe we're missing that you guys can find? Then I'll go into the database and start looking for guys. And then every once in a while you get a list from a head coach. I can guarantee you this right now. When I get a list from a head coach, it's 2 or 3 guys. His guy is in there. Whether it's good or bad,
that's right.
I am not talking him out of that guy. Right. I mean, I was. It already happened once a couple weeks ago. Get a list from a head coach, big time name guy, and the search is done. But I got the list of 3, and he called. He texted me at it's 5 a.m. my time. He's like, you got time to talk? I'm like, oh man, and I'm literally walking through the house trying to go get a cup of coffee. I'm like, yeah, go ahead and call me coach. And we start going through his 3 guys, and he focuses on one. And he's like, so what do you think? And I gave him my opinion, but then he starts arguing about why one particular guy he liked. And I was just like, okay, well, I know you're going to hire that guy.
Right.
And he's like, what? Why? How do you know I'm hiring that guy? I said, well, look, I've done this for nearly a decade, and you're arguing on behalf of a guy that is high risk in our numbers. I said, I don't care if you hire him. You just need to understand the floor and the ceiling and the risk you're taking bringing him in.
Right.
That's my job. When you lie down, you know what the floor and ceiling expectations are of anybody you're hiring. And that's kind of in a nutshell how it works. But there's no one particular process that we go through every single time. That's one of the cool things about my job. It's always different.
Yeah, it's custom.
AD.
I mean, and there's no doubt about that. Every team, every GM or coach or AD or whoever you work with, it's a custom deal. Dave Bartoo on the Out of Bounds show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. All right, Ole Miss, Miami. Tell me, I mean, you've looked at the matchup. I mean, share some nuggets or thoughts that you can share on this Ole Miss Miami matchup. Ole Miss has had a magical season. Miami's had it's got to be magical to get to the Final Four. And so when you look at this matchup, what is the first thing that jumps out at you, Diamond Dave?
So you know me, right? When it comes down to matchups, and this seems to be much, much less important, even though the better talent is 6-2 in the playoffs. First thing I'm looking for is who's a better talent profile, right? And that's Miami. And then I go to, okay, who has the best unit on the field? Miami's defense is the best unit on the field. The Miami offense, the Ole Miss offense, the Ole Miss defense, they're secondary to the Miami defense year to date. But that being said, you have Ole Miss with the second best unit out there, which is their offense. Going up against Miami's, so to me, the game, I always like to focus on what people don't talk about. And to me, it'll come down to probably Carson Beck and the Miami offense and Shannon versus Pete and the Ole Miss defense. But no matter how you slice this thing up, at this point, talent-wise, performance-wise, I mean, you're probably, it's like an NFL game. You're betting the hook, right? Are you taking the 2.5 or the 3.5? Because we expect those kind of games, even though in college football there's a lot of blowouts. I still lean towards the talent and having the best unit performing on the field year to date. That being said as well, though, is now that game is next week, right?
Yes, it's next weekend.
One week. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Dude, okay. Sidebar. This is a little nugget I found in NFL playoffs, and maybe it applies to college. Okay. So hear me out on this. Is defense wins championships at the NFL level, right? And I've talked to you about this. I've talked to you on the show. And because when you look at all the Super Bowls won, vast majority of them are being won by top 3 defenses during the regular season. But even Tom Brady, if he didn't have a top 10 defense during the regular season, he didn't win a Super Bowl.
Okay.
None of them. Everything he lost, he had a poor defense. And then I started feeding the data in, and I started looking at the championship games and divisional games and wild card games. And the data that kept coming back was the defense wins the Super Bowl, but in order to get there, you have to have the offense. And what the numbers were saying is that offense travels, and week over week, an offense will win football games. But then the defense wins the big one because there's 2 or 3 weeks off for the great defense to figure it all out. So, yes, defense wins championships, but the offenses get you there. And so you look at that game and you go, okay, Ole Miss has the better offense. Does that get them to the championship game on a 1 week? I'm fascinated with this game, and I don't think any outcome is going to surprise us in this one.
Okay. So close game, and I don't even know what the line is, but I would think it's 3 or less.
It's got to be like 2.5. I mean, there's got to be a pretty tight hook on that one. But you look at the Ole Miss numbers, year to date going in. I mean, we're talking offensively, top 20 in expected points. Defense was 55th. But that was a 19% improvement since mid-year. So the defense for Ole Miss has gotten significantly better leading up to the playoffs. Their offensive success rate was 25th. Defensive success rate was only 43rd. Ole Miss net point per drive is 12. So, you start looking at these numbers, and there's a lot of things that Ole Miss is pretty good at, elite at nothing, except explosive index. They're number 8 on offense in explosive index.
Wow.
And they're 9th in defensive momentum, and they're 17th in offensive momentum. And this is something new. Never talked about this before, but I was able to quantify momentum. And momentum is offense working together with the defense. So Ole Miss, in terms of producing momentum in a football game, and this is more important than turnover battle, people. It's more important than you win the momentum battle, you beat turnover margin 3 out of 4 times in football games. This is the most important thing in football, is winning the momentum, and it's been that way since 2010. Ole Miss is fantastic at extending and hooking together drives. That is their key. So when you're watching Miami and Ole Miss, if Ole Miss can start hooking drives together, the momentum is really, really big for them. That is going to be a key to the game against Miami.
Talk about momentum index. What is it? Define it for us.
I don't want to get too much into it because literally this is going to change how people coach football. I really do believe that, and I've been working on the data for over 4 months now. But momentum is the offense working with the defense in combination. Most people think momentum is a play or a drive or, they got the momentum going into the half. No, it's 60 minutes, right? That whole middle 8 is BS. It doesn't exist. Okay, it only exists in your mind because the media tells you it's there. The data says, especially at the college football level, that whole middle 8, that's a bunch of crap, right? Playing for 2 possessions, it's dumb because it's literally a coin flip. So on the momentum side, it's all about stringing together scoring and non-scoring drives, okay, and putting together back-to-back drives and stops. And that is how it is built going forward. So
Ole Miss is 9th and 17th, 9th on offense and 17th on defense in the momentum index, right?
Yeah, they are. And Georgia, going into that game, was 13th and 8th, right? So these were 2 very, very even teams. Defensively, Georgia was 38th. Offensively, they were 24th. Ole Miss was 16th. A lot of people are like, wow, how'd they beat them? Because they're almost the same team. You look at these numbers, the explosive index on offense and defense. They balance each other out. I mean, I'm shocked the game didn't go into overtime and we were that close to it happening. But you look on paper at these numbers here, and I'll get you the Miami Ole Miss side by side so you can talk about it to start, anytime next week. But this was a very, very, very close game on paper. Okay.
Ole Miss had the better quarterback. Kirby went for it on 4th and 2 in his own territory in the third quarter. Didn't need to. The game was 27-24. Can you kind of give us some thoughts when a coach is in their own territory and they don't have – it's not like it was a minute and a half left, Bartoo, and they were down. Okay. And they
Right.
needed to
Right.
continue to try to, move the ball to possibly kick a field goal or score a touchdown. He 4th and 2 in their own territory, and that's where the momentum started to swing. Talk about going for it in your own territory in a game.
It's funny you say that's where the momentum is starting to swing. And I just said a minute ago, momentum is not one play. It's a big series of plays. So it's going to take a while for people to catch on with that. Now, going for it inside your 50, we know there's risk, right? I mean, when a head coach is going for it, especially 4th and 3, everybody listening, when you see 4th and 3 or more, when they are going for it, that is against the numbers. That is purely a gut feel. And that's fine. As long as the coach just says, I'm going with my gut. I'm not coaching by any sort of book or numbers. I'm just going with my gut. That's cool. But understand the risk of the downside of not making it. It's just like these hires, right? So many of these guys are wired to think, I can't lose. They don't look at the floor. They're always looking at the ceiling because that's just the way they're wired. But so Georgia was up, 27-24 at that point?
Yeah.
There's no time pressure. There's no time pressure and there's no score pressure. Who was the last one to score?
Ole Miss.
Okay, so Ole Miss right now had scored a touchdown at least, and then now you're giving them an incredibly short field if you don't make it, right? So it's not necessarily about building momentum in that play. It's allowing Ole Miss to continue there,
right?
Which they established with the last drive.
Boom.
So now you're doubling down. Not only giving them short field position, you're allowing them to hook drives together,
right?
Which becomes death. Seriously, when you see a team start putting drives together, this is how games end very quickly in the NFL and college football, and you don't realize it. So. Yeah, going forward on 4th and 1, it's inside your 50. I think that's insane. Guys slipped. I mean, these are so many bad things can happen in these situations, and you're up. You don't have time pressure. Yeah, I think it was like watching Dan Lanning against Texas Tech. You're like, you're just trying to lose this game, aren't you? You're going to win this. You're going to win this because of your players, not because of your stupid decisions. And did Ole Miss turn around and score on that short field?
Yes.
That was probably the ball game right there.
Boom.
Right? I mean, you extrapolate out all the time and drives after that. He probably lost the game, not on the 3rd and goal, not running it, on that stupid 4th down and going for it.
Diamond Dave Bartoo on the Out of Bounds show. Happy New Year. Thanks, buddy.
See you, bro.
That was fantastic on Ole Miss and Miami. Wow. Have a great day. And lunch, dinner, Taste Italian Kitchen in the Renaissance. Lunch and dinner. TasteItaliankitchen.com in Starkville in the Renaissance.